In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 reasons golfers don't get better. Essentially 3 traps that golfers fall into when they're practicing hard. They may be doing an hour a week or 10 hours a week, but their scores just aren't lowering. And I was trying to think of a good example to explain this from people I've played golf with. And then essentially I realized the best example is me. This is essentially what I did from the age of 16. I got down to a 4 handicap really quickly. And then I got stuck. I was practicing 20, 30, 40 hours a week. Until the age of 18, I just didn't get better. If anything, I got worse. So if that sounds like you and it sounds like you're putting a lot of work in practice, but that's not really translating to lower scores, I really hope these 3 areas help you because I wish I'd known them as a kid growing up. So the first trap is golfers who don't know how to lower their scores. Now it sounds a little bit complex, but what it looks like is a golfer at the range beating balls, hitting a driver, hitting a 7-iron. They might be at the short game area. The key thing is they're getting better at that skill. And then when they go out on the golf course, their scores don't move. So these golfers often feel quite perplexed as to, well, my driving's improving on the range, I'm striping my 4-irons, but my scores are staying the same, they're still 82. And the key here to understanding how to shoot lower scores is playing stats. It doesn't have to be anything really complicated, I'll dive into this, but you need to keep some sort of playing stats. Because essentially the game of golf is trying to shoot the lowest score possible. The metric you really should care about are how many shots or strokes you take to get around a golf course. And really playing stats allow you to benchmark how you compile your score at the moment and then understand, well, if I want to go from, say, a 12 handicap to a 7 handicap, I need to find 5 shots. And it allows you to try and pinpoint where you should try and improve. And then later in this video, we'll go into how you're going to improve that specific area. So what stats should you keep? Well, the best that we have in golf is really strokes gained data. The key thing is strokes gained is measured in shots. We have a whole video explaining this. But if you're looking at your strokes gained data and you have it for, say, 2 or 3 rounds, and you say, right, okay, at the moment I'm a 12 handicap and I want to go to this 7 handicap, you need to find 5 shots. Well, if you can lower your strokes gained by 5, then you can look at your strokes gained data and say, great, I'm going to go for 2 shots in my driving and 2 shots in my putting and maybe 1 in my short game. And you know that if your strokes gains go down by that amount or improve by that amount, you'll actually be 5 shots better as a golfer. And therefore, you'll hit your target of going from a 12 handicap to a 7 handicap, which is a huge jump and still requires some work. What this data then allows you to do is look at your specific area. So let's take, say, putting as an area, and then look within the distances and go, right, okay, the key for me is working on 5 to 10 feet, or maybe you struggle with your lag putting from longer distance. That straight away tells you how you're scoring at the moment, and it gives you a very specific targeted thing to work on in practice. And you know, if you improve that area in practice, you'll see that your scores start to tumble. And then I would say if you're above a 15 handicap, you don't always need strokes gained data, but you can just look at basic stats. So you can look at how far you drive the ball, how many greens you hit in regulation, chips and putts around. That gives you a really good understanding of whether you are the right level. I've got some really cool resources on this. I'll share a link and you can start to look at, well, what's the average? But then what I've also done is look at the 90 percentile. So if you're within that range, then you're likely to get your target handicap. If you're outside that range or below that range, then you're going to struggle. So that's hopefully some useful information. Some other really useful basic stats that you can keep that aren't normally talked about too much. Greens and regulation is the best predictor of performance. But if you're a higher handicap, you may want to have greens and regulation +1. So that means that a par 3 normally would be aiming to hit that in 1 shot and have 2 putts. Well, can you hit that par 3 in 2? If you've got a par 4, normally we're looking to hit that in 2 shots, but can you hit it in 3? So greens and regulation +1 is probably one of the best stats if you're just going to keep one number as you play golf. That'll help you get better as a higher handicap. Another challenge with basic stats is fairways and regulation. Like it's not always the best predictor. You can hit it miles and be just off the fairway and it's a good drive. So a really good way of looking at this is how many times can you advance the ball off a drive? So if you've got 14 drives around, and you manage to have 10 of them where you don't have to chip outside, where it's not a lost ball. Just being able to either hit the fairway or advance it up near the green, count that as one of the good stats that you can look at to understand, okay, am I doing the things I need to do to lower my handicap? Okay, let's get on to trap 2 that I see so many golfers fall into. And this one is working on your golf swing because something doesn't look right. This, you may be laughing to yourself as you say it, but I see this all the time at the range. I can also try and fall into this sometimes myself as well. And essentially what this looks like is someone at the range and you say, well, how's your game going? Yeah, I'm just sort of working on my backswing, on my wrist angles. I just need to do this and then everything will start to click. And the key thing is if they're working this way, they're actually working backwards. And I'll explain why that is. But one of the quickest ways to practice and get worse is to fix something in your swing because it doesn't look right. So what's the proper way to do this? And what's the proper way to actually diagnose what to work on in your swing? Well, I said it's working backwards. So what you actually want to do is, we talked about stats and looking at what areas to work on. Within that, you want to look at your shot pattern or your dispersion. Now, the goal of golf is to get the ball to your target, and your shot pattern or dispersion tells you, well, where are you missing at the moment? And the key thing you want to do in practice is actually improve your dispersion and get closer to the target. So you need to start with a really simple method here, which is you start with your outcome and look at your shot dispersion. And let's say it's right at the target. Then next you're going to go, right, well, what is my shot shape to get there? So maybe you're hitting a big slice. Maybe it starts left of the target, curves a lot in the air. That's why it's finishing over there. You then need to work backwards again and go, right, what's causing that slice? Well, if you've got a slice, you've got the club face open to the swing path at impact, and that's putting all of the side spin and curvature on your golf shots. So then you need to think, right, in my golf swing, how am I going to improve that face to path relationship? How can I get that club face squarer to the path in a way that's simple and actually improves me as a golfer? And then we get to the final bit, which is what should you change in a golf swing? I'd love you to find a great local coach here. But if we stay in this example, if you've got an open club face, grip is often where coaches start. If you've got a very weak grip, you're always going to have to time it. But it could be working on the wrist angles. It could even be ball position. Setup is something that can actually have an impact on that. Release, how the body works, lots of different things. But the key thing is that you should ground yourself in what you're working on in your technique should be related to getting better at golf. And we know that getting better at golf requires getting your ball to the target. And so you need to start with where are your balls finishing relative to the target, and then what are you going to do in your golf swing? Another real quick example of this is if a lot of your shots finish short of the target, and obviously you've got the distance to get it there, work on strike. You should be working on strike 9 times out of 10 in terms of hitting the middle of the club, making sure you actually hit the ball first with your irons, and you'll improve so much more as a golfer than trying to refine your shot shape and hit a slight draw and end up just duffing it in front of you. So how do you keep your shot pattern? Well, again, if you've got an app, then it does all of this for you. It's a little bit of work to put it in, but it gives you these wonderful dispersions and allows you to break them down for different distances. But if not, just grab a pad and paper, just draw 2 lines, make a fairway, and as you go after your round, just go, where did I hit it off the first tee, the second tee, the third, the fourth, and keep that. And then into the green, just put some little X's and start to work out where your shots finish relative to your target. Key thing I can tell you here is when you do this, it will not be the pattern you expect. So it's really worthwhile doing. And if you can do it for say 2-3 rounds, you'll start to realize, oh, I always do this. And I wasn't even aware that's where my shots finish. Okay, trap number 3. And I think this will resonate with some people, which is poor on-course strategy. What this looks like is if you're a player and you just stripe it at the range, you smoke it, everyone tells you your golf swing's amazing. You go out there and you still shoot 100. And everyone goes, well, I don't understand. I don't really understand what's going on here. The key is this person doesn't understand how to score, and having a beautiful golf swing and even hitting the ball really well is very different to learning how to score on the golf course. And the inverse is also true. We've all played with those people who have a horrible, ugly swing and they just somehow bump it down the middle every time, and you add up their score and they haven't even made a double bogey in 18 holes. So let's get into what you can do here. Now, this is a big topic, but I'm going to try and give you some big boulders, I suppose, to go away and work on. The first thing is think what score you need on each golf hole and work backwards. So if you're on a par 4 and you think, right, it's 400 yards and I'm looking for a 5 here, then break down the hole backwards and work out what you need to do. You need to be on the green in 3 shots and ideally have 2 putts. So then that 400 yards, you can suddenly think, well, how am I going to get there in 3 shots? You may hit a drive or something you feel comfortable off the tee at 180 yards. And you think, well, I've got 220. Now, this is where most golfers get it wrong. They start to pull out a 3-wood, try and smoke it 220, big slice into the trees, never see their ball again. Well, 220 could be as simple as hitting a 9-iron down there, say maybe 100, 120 yards, and another 9-iron onto the green. It's not what golfers want to do, but if you want to learn to score, breaking down holes backwards and doing this is such an interesting way to rethink what shots you should actually hit. Same with a par 5, if you've got a 500-yard par 5. Say you want to be on the green in 4, well, that's 4 shots of 125 yards. You wouldn't even need to hit driver off the tee. You could just hit 9-iron, 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 9-iron. Not saying that's what you do, but I'm just saying this is a really nice thought experiment to rethink how to play holes. And I think this works particularly well when you have holes that you struggle with. So if you have that one bogey hole where you make an 8 or a 9, start to think about this strategy and start to think how you can use this to improve your strategy on that one hole. Another key tip on this is aiming for zones, not the flag. please, the best golfers in the world aim away from the flag if it's put on the side of the green. And yet we get 19 handicappers who just decide with their shambles of a fade that they can go straight at a pin. So the key thing here is aim for zones. Now, the most obvious one is if you've got over 100 yards into the hole, middle of the green, just take the biggest part of the green and just aim for that. And that's great. But if you want to broaden this slightly, if you've got a hole where there's a load of danger, say long of the hole, and you're not sure what club to take, just accept that you're going to be just short of the green, say 20 yards short of the green, and you're going to leave yourself a really easy pitch because maybe the green's sloped that way and you want to leave yourself a nice easy pitch up there. Again, bringing this to another area and thinking about zones, if you have out of bounds the whole way down the right hand side of the hole, there's a good hole that I play at the moment that's like this. You don't even have to aim for the fairway. You can aim for the left hand side of the fairway and into the left hand rough, because you just know that zone is going to give you the best possible chance to get the ball in play, advance it up there a little bit further, and avoid having 3 off the tee. And then one of the last ones I want to give you here, because it's so important, is to play with your shot shape. So we're talking about your shot shape earlier. And the key thing to learn here is that in practice, you can work on improving your shot shape if you have a big fade or a draw or a slice. But when you get on the golf course, allow for it. So rather trying to fight your swing, just accept that if you've got a 20-yard slice, aim and allow for it into the fairway and allow for it into the green. Yes, you will hit that one shot that you stripe straight, you're aiming left and it goes left. But the majority of the time, particularly if you see your dispersion, you'll realize that this will help you get to the ball to the target. And I have some days when I'm playing my best, I hit like a 1-2 yard draw. That's brilliant. I feel really in control. On my bad days, I have like a 15-yard draw with my longer clubs. I hate it. I really hate it. And sometimes that draws more, sometimes less. But I just have to know that I'm aiming down the right side of the fairway. And now and again, I'll hit it straight right. But most of the time, if I'm struggling with my swing, it's going to draw back. And I'm going to end up down the middle or maybe down the left. So let's just have a quick recap. So the 3 biggest traps that I see golfers fall into. Number 1 is not knowing how to score. And the solution for this is just keeping some sort of playing stats, whether it's strokes gain data or something more basic. Number 2 is working on something in your golf swing because it doesn't look right. And I see this so often. And the key here is to work backwards from your dispersion. So understand, like, what's your dispersion? What's the ball flight that's getting you there? What's the impact factor that's causing that? And then what's the most efficient way to develop or improve that aspect in your golf swing? Work on that. Try not to get distracted. And then the final one is poor on-course strategy. So it's those golfers that stripe on the range but just don't have a clue how to score. Hopefully I've given you some tips for this. Another one, whilst it's on my mind, is a game in regulation. Go play 9 holes. Don't worry about your score. Your goal is to try and hit as many fairways and greens as possible. So you get 1 point for hitting a fairway, you get 3 points for hitting a green. And that is such a great way to rethink how to play golf. That's one of the games in BreakX Golf. There's obviously hundreds more in there as well. So hopefully that helps you. Hopefully it stops you wasting 2 years of your life like I did, not understanding these areas. If you've got any questions, leave them below. Obviously we built BreakX Golf to try and help you do these. It does a lot of this automatically and it really keeps you on track. But you can do it without, you can do it with a piece of pen and paper. Have fun and go and enjoy your golf.